Good evening, Metallurgists, or welcome to another Wednesday Album Club. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Marty. Good to see you. Hope you're all doing well and had a good week. Kellen, how are you?
I'm good. I am good. I'm excited. We got a new member here for this week.
Yep.
And super excited to have Logan join us. Thank you so much, Logan, for stopping by and doing this with us.
Always, man. Glad to, honor that my name came up in the first place. So cheers to all you guys and everyone in the chat.
Sweet.
Yep. Ben wanted me to make sure you were thanked for filling in for him. So,
Ben, you could have stayed on for the Power Metal album, man. It's I'm happy to listen to Hibria.
Right on.
Sweet.
What's been going on, Kellen?
Yeah. So, I got. Let me see. Just as a quick side note, for those who maybe didn't catch it, Marty has been super busy with reviews. I feel like you had an influx, about probably 15 sitting in your inbox.
I got 3 more to do.
Yeah.
But
he was so kind to throw one up for Noxus for me this past week. So
great record.
If you want to check that out. Other things I've been listening to. We're doing a power metal episode tonight. This one, I don't know if you want to call it, yes, power metal, but also a little bit on the prog thing. I do want to say Alan has shown this record off, or this is Conception with Parallel Minds.
You've shown it numerous times. Yeah.
I've been listening to this a good amount, and probably on my next sword and cheese episode of power metal, I'll talk about this at length. But been digging that, and I have been kind of craving some symphonic black metal. This goes back to 1999, and this is Art Inferno from Italy with Abyssum Invocat. I think Peter over at the Metal Vault may have recommended this to me. Yeah, this, interestingly enough, this was released on Scarlet Records, which is an Italian record label, but they're the same record label that's putting out a lot of power metal nowadays. Like Frozen's Crown is on that label. So interesting tie-in for tonight. Without a doubt, though. So the one album I have been listening to at length and just kind of blown away by, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. We got a promo for this, so it hasn't officially been released. But this is the new Ingurgitating Oblivion. I know you can't really see that. But it's called Ontology of Naught. Yeah. This has been pretty wild to listen to. It's kind of a slow heroin drip of a death metal record.
Who put this out?
Willow Tip record release. But man, that'll show up my end of year list for sure. It's a wild release. I've been waiting. It sort of teased that for 2 or 3 years now, so to finally get it released, I'm excited.
Their last album was what, like 2016 or 2017 or something?
Yeah, it was. Don't know if it was that long ago. I want to say maybe 2017, but I think you're around that time period. But it's been a minute. But that one, we got that in the promos, and I immediately swooped in on it. It's a wild one. So been listening to that tons.
Right on, Jim. How about you? What's been going on? You just got back home from being here.
Yeah, I just got back home to Florida. I'm getting back used to it still being, 88 degrees in the middle of the night.
It's that way here. It's hotter. It's been hotter than shit since you left.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess not missing much then. But yeah, it's good to be back and see the family and stuff, and just powering through life as we all are. So I'm going to show a few more things I got while I was up there with you, Marty, in Michigan. We went to Grand Rapids. So Unleashed, Where No Light Dwells, the debut, needs no introduction. I just love the guitar tone on this. Just absolutely crushing sound. There's, I like the tiny bits of like, kind of like bizarre groove, like on the title track, and Where Life Ends, like kind of wonder if, like, did Malik listen to this album a little bit? You know what I mean? 'Cause, type kind of riff. You know what I mean? And I love this record. It's awesome. And thank you, TJ, for turning me on to this, because I had actually kind of dismissed Unleashed. All their mid period and late stuff, I just never really connected with. And TJ was like, "You need to have Where No Life Dwells. It is essential." So finally do. So that's great. Alan should be happy. Fire Down Under got me some Riot while we were up there.
Yep.
Really, really, really great condition. 1981 press. It's and it was relatively inexpensive. I think I paid like $25 for or something, but really good shape. And sounds awesome. If you haven't heard Riot, fix that. Good stuff. Awesome proto metal, and just get used to the seal, man, baby. Come on.
Tior.
Oh, and by the way, the other Riot album I bought, Marty, I cleaned it, or my brother did. Plays perfectly. For $6, I got a 1979.
It didn't look like there were deep scratches on it. It looked like could be the needle would ride through it, but a cleaning would have helped. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. We ran that thing to that yellow thing with a solution. I can't think what it's called. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And put it on, dude. It didn't even crack or pop. I mean, no, it sounded flawless. I mean, I'm just like so excited. So great. And now I turned Bill into a Riot fan. He had listened to him before, so he's like, "Holy shit, this is awesome."
Yeah. Right on.
Feel the Fire, Overkill. This is another one that Marty always like ranted about. My favorite's always been like their second album, and obviously Years of Decay as well. But Marty's right, man. This record slams, dude. I mean, the production is amazing.
It's their best.
Guitar's amazing. Obviously, Dee Dee Verney's sound is always great on the bass. I mean, Hammerhead, Blood and Iron, Rotten to the Core. I mean, these songs are just awesome, man. This is such a great record. So essential as well. So yeah, that's what I've been spinning, and looking forward to discussing some power metal.
Right on. And again, thanks, Logan, for joining us. For those of you who are not familiar, Metal and Beer Snob is the name of the channel. Link in the description. He's going to be riding with us for this foreseeable future, unless he gets tired of us or has other plans. But yeah, Ben's got a bunch of work going on. It's been awesome. Ben, thank you for hanging with us. We had a great time doing it with you. He'll be back, I'm sure, sometime too. So, but anyway, Logan, how have you been doing? What's going on with your channel, and what have you been spinning?
Been great, man. Cheers. Thank you for giving me an excuse to drink on a Wednesday night. I appreciate it. But it's been good, man. Just trying to keep up with making videos on a somewhat regular, time scale. It gets tough. Life gets in the way. But this week, the main goal has been getting prepared for this, like trying to get into the power metal mind space. And then I hear I get the pick for next week. So sorry in advance, everybody. But, thinking about what I want to subject you all to. That's a lot of power to give the new person. So just a heads up there. But yeah.
Don't fuck this up, Logan.
I'm going to fuck it up, man. But I'm embracing it. I'm going, we're going off the cliff for sure. But first, power metal. So I'm not a power metal guy by any means, but maybe I could be. So that's kind of like the trial run with this album right here. So to kind of prepare for this, this week, I've been listening to some power metal albums that I actually kind of enjoy. First off, a 2024 album. Marty, cue the slide. I've been jamming to the latest Freeways a lot, actually. It's kind of like more laid back, lighthearted. Still kind of like a dark vibe to it, but not almost one of those albums you couldn't really call metal. It's got that hard rock 70s vibe, but I think the songwriting and like the production and everything kind of lets it sit in this new wave of traditional heavy metal kind of scene that we're in the middle of. But a 2024 album that I've been enjoying a lot recently, especially when I'm not looking for something really heavy or intense. So Freeways. And then outside of that, actually getting into like some of my favorite power metal albums that kind of clicked with. The first one I had to pull of course, Somewhere Far Beyond by Blind Guardian. This is up there as one of my favorite Blind Guardian albums. I think only this album right here, Imaginations, trumps it, but I love this album. It's dynamic. The stories are great. The the individual songwriting is great. Opening with "Time, What Is Time?" What a catchy chorus. "Ashes to Ashes." What an emotionally hefty song that is. Love that one. And then, of course, the closing title track, "Somewhere Far Beyond," is just epic. So yeah, and honestly, Hansy's vocals along with the songwriting carries that, and definitely why I've glommed onto that. And then I'm also a big American power metal fan, and "Digital Dictator" by Vicious Rumors is one that I always grab for sure. I had the chance to see these guys live with Raven earlier in the year, and it was great. Was it just me in the venue? Yeah, but it was still a great show. And yeah, man, Digital Dictator, underrated album. Title track is great. "Minute to Kill" is phenomenal. "Lady Took a Chance" is kind of a weird song.
Oh, it is.
It is, but it's a good one though. And then yeah, anything with "Condemned" and "Out of the Shadows" is good. This is kind of like that in between transition from, I think, American heavy metal to American power metal. But yeah, good stuff. And then another American power metal band which also straddles that heavy metal line is Twisted Tower Dire.
Oh yeah.
And I'm familiar with these guys because I'm from the North Carolina scene, originally Raleigh specifically, and these guys are Raleigh heroes, if you will. So Raleigh-based band, and I've had the chance to see them live twice, and they're awesome. And this is an awesome album. Once again, really great dynamics. They do a good job of like having that heavy metal intensity, but they having that power metal intensity, but then they can balance it out with some heavy metal dynamics and just epic songwriting choices. And the gang vocals on this album is just awesome. So that was kind of how I try to get into this Hibria album we're about to talk about.
Right on. Well, welcome to the club, and I'm up next. All right, yeah, a couple things I got from Grand Rapids when me and Jim rode down. Been listening to this a lot. I love this record. No Means No is Wrong. I was hoping to pick this up on vinyl. It just got reissued by Alternative Tentacles, and they didn't have it, so I settled for the CD, which is ultimately fine. It's fine. Canadian band, real bass dominant. Just call it punk is kind of cheap. It's really an energetic mix of punk and something else I just can't put my finger on. But these guys are fun, hard hitting. They just destroy. I love this band. Good stuff. This is one I've got from Vertigo a while ago, but I'm still piecing through their catalog. Yendod with Kriegsdag Doger. I don't know. It's a two-piece.
Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. I sound just like Roger. Two-piece Norwegian black metal band. Every one of their records sounds a little bit different from each other, but it's all really good, nasty, atmospheric, good black metal. I got a favorite here, Kellen's, I believe. Saw this at that corner record shop. Had to snag it. Scorpions,
yes.
Animal Magnetism. Good album. I think my favorite on here is probably The Zoo. I don't know. It's a lot of songs I haven't heard, so it's been a fun listen. It's right before they started to get kind of crappy, so.
What is the dog thinking? That's what I want to know.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's on point with all Scorpions record. Am I supposed to be feeling something here?
Yeah. Right.
The dog doesn't have good intentions.
It's ambiguous for sure.
Yeah.
But, you can't go wrong with the Scorps. Early Scorps, good Scorps.
And The Zoo is a great song, too. So
which one? The Zoo? Yeah.
The Zoo, I mean, I'm a sucker for the title track that closes the record.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's good. And I just put up a review of myself covering the new Orden Ogan album, and I've been listening to that record a lot to get ready for it, and also this one, To the End. There's just something special about this one. It's always the first one I heard, and I think it's their heaviest, and it's just, we covered it here on the album club, so I'm not going to go on and on, but this album always hits the spot. Right. But tonight, we are here to talk about this one here, Hibria's Defying the Rules. It came out in 2004. This is a Brazilian band. Little bit of history about the band. Hibria was a Brazilian power metal band, is a Brazilian power metal band known for their technicality and speed. The band cites influences from traditional metal bands such as Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, thrash bands such as Metallica and Megadeth, and progressive bands such as Dream Theater. Talks about their touring. They're still together. They just put out a record a years ago. But yeah, this is the only album I own by them. S. Craig Zoller told me that they kind of sit in the same class as Lost Horizon, though I don't think they're as good as Lost Horizon. I get what he's saying, and that he actually had this record sent to me. But first impressions, we'll let Logan sit and stew in his thoughts for a minute.
Oh,
Kellen, your first impression. This is the first time you've heard this record?
So yeah, I had seen it though. I don't know if it's because Zoller had brought it up previously, like I remember him talking about it, or you showed it off, or where it was. But I had seen this record come around and just thought, like, what is going on the album cover? Kind of confused as to what to expect there.
You got to laugh when you look at the album cover.
It just like, even for power metal standards, it's kind of like, I don't know what to expect from this. It's like a weird video game wannabe speed metal kind of look, but yeah, I was told, right, like this is something that can compete with Lost. Yes,
the triumphant headbanger with the lead pipe in the center is
like I get the street thing. For me always felt a bit more speed metal-ish, and that's the leather and the bikes and the street fight whatever gang thing, but yeah, so the tag was, this is Lost Horizon in some shape or form. If you want more of that sound, check out Hibria. And I completely, it does not take long, second track here, to figure out what you mean by that, or anyone who's leading you down that path. There's enough sort of like that turn where power metal still is retaining a little bit of like speed metal, thrash, sort of the influence from Germany, but sort of with greater body and weight that you got in the sort of the 21st century. Like I could imagine when we talk about the songwriting, I'll get more into the influences. But I remember we were talking about Lost Horizon. It was like, okay, I could also understand why these guys were previously playing in like a death metal band and brought a little bit of that with them within a power metal context. Mm-hmm. I heard that kind of I can hear the exact same energy there all over this record. And it is unlike a lot of other power metal where it's kind of built around sort of catchy choruses. You don't get that really as much on this record. It's a little bit more about speed and aggression. So totally makes sense in terms of the comparison. Yeah, after that, I think we'll get into the songwriting later on, but just kind of a ripper, heavy power metal record was sort of the initial impression I had.
What about you, Logan? What are your thoughts? Your first impression?
So yeah, first impression occurred, last a week ago, about actually when Marty pulled this album up, and of course, as Callan said, the album cover was immediately like, what on earth are they doing? It features, there's a ninja on it holding a medieval mace, and then the Swedish guy is holding a samurai sword. What are we doing?
A ninja on a motorcycle.
A ninja on a motorcycle. And a Swedish dude on a motorcycle, and the band is from Brazil, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, and the name of the album is Defying the Rules. That's also not the best album title, in my opinion. When I think of Defying the Rules, it makes me think of someone skipping class in grade school, or sneaking out past your curfew or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and then of course I was like, well, I probably won't listen to this because I don't need to. But lo and behold,
I heard you through the ether say
someone else had other ideas, and,
yeah.
and here we are. And I admit the first spin through, I think, Kellen, you got it right. It's ripping, fast, power metal, and it was kind of what I expected. It was good, technically proficient, and intense. And my first impression on the first run through, and I think Marty, we talked briefly on Saturday about it, was that it was a bit overblown, and I just felt like we were going like this the whole time, and I couldn't necessarily grab on to too much, and there was not much in the way of variety for me. Though even on that first listen, though, I knew the bass was special. I will say that. So yeah, not incredibly taken with it, or I wasn't able to pick out too much from it on first spin. But I think that changes. So
right on. As soon as he said the bass stands out special, old Silver Fox starts
on cue,
grinning like a shithouse rat.
Yeah, well, all right. So, like Logan, I am not a big power metal guy except for Blind Guardian.
We're working on that, everybody. Just so you know, we're working on that.
And I do like Halloween. I do like Lost Horizon. There are bands that kind of punch through the ether for me in this genre. So it was for me, like Logan said, it was kind of like everything that I expected. And when we got to the first song past the intro, though, I'm like, did he just say to be the wiener?
Yeah, me and Parker were singing that in the car today, and he's like pointing at his crotch saying the wiener. I'm like, yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, okay, now this will be fun at least. But yeah, I mean, there's no denying these guys are absolute shredders. I mean, that bass player is sick, man. He's
super sick.
He's doing like arpeggios while he's finger tapping. He's like, I'm like, oh, what in the? I mean, it's freakish how good this guy is. I mean, they're all talented, the guitar players as well. But yeah, that bass player is just on another level, dude. I mean, this guy would give DiGiorgio a run for his money. Yeah, I'm glad that they kind of own up to like Big Four thrash as being influenced, because man, I hear Rust in Peace era Megadeth all over this. Like there's a lot of like Mustaine like scales that are running, especially in like the riffs that are played behind the leads, and some of the ascending riffs that like, the chord progressions are moving up and further up the neck. As some of Dave does a lot of it, and they do a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, these guys definitely love the most technically interesting Megadeth, in my humble opinion, which that's actually a kind of a key to my heart, because I really love that record. So, that sort of embracing of that, specific, album, and the style of guitar playing on that record, it was kind of like a kind of a sort of a like unlock for me to maybe engage with this record a little more than I was initially inspired to do. And, that along with the shreddy bass playing. I mean, typically like, shredding of this caliber, I start falling asleep after a while. Tim in the chat used the word wanker, you know what I mean? And that's a word I use too, and describing a lot of it. It's like, hey, a little restraint would go nice here. But we're talking about power metal. Power metal isn't about restraint. It's the opposite of restraint. It's like, let's fully embrace the Velveeta. Let's just engage and gorge upon it. And so for me, it actually kind of fit. You know what I mean? It wasn't like annoying or, self-indulgent, where it could have been if they were trying to take their, approach a little in a more darker tone. There's nothing dark about this, or I would say very little dark about it. So, yeah, you get past the Escape from Sao Paulo cover and all that kind of stuff. But, I think there's a little bit of, interesting. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
Just like the, the sort of like musicality of it, which we'll get into, was, something that kind of overcame what to me is the typically, first layer, off-putting cheese level of most power metal. So, yeah, I'm excited to kind of do a deeper dive. But yeah, first impressions, I was super hesitant. I was like, oh my God, where did you find an 04 Brazilian power metal album, Marty?
That's Craig Zoller.
Okay, yeah. I was like, I'm already showing his like here is my elitism on display.
Nope, not mine. I'm gleaning it off of someone else on this.
And that's totally fine. And, but apparently, like you guys, I mean, I'm looking at them. I mean, these guys are all over the internet. Apparently, in this scene, they're big. But again, this isn't my typical genre. But yeah, let's dig into it. Let's talk some more about it.
Yeah, for me, hearing it for the first time was when my friend Craig Zoller was here visiting and put it on, queued it up on the phone. He's like, "Oh, if you like Lost Horizon, this kind of in the same league." Put it on, and then watching him perform the whole thing with air guitar and going up through the sunroof. This solo, and he goes out the sunroof and is doing this air guitar out the sunroof while we're driving down the road type of shit. So I mean, that kind of sold it right away. But first impression, he ended up getting this CD for me and listening to the layers. There's a speed or thrash metal vibe for sure, but the thing is produced so well, you listen, you can hear the bass and the guitar interplay going on underneath the vocals. It's talking about wankery. Yeah, there's obvious wankery on here, but I take it as very tasteful. It's all in service of the song for me. I mean, there's bands that do the wankery. It's like, okay, get yourself a ShamWow and clean yourself up when you're done. This here, it feels like it works. It just fits for me. The cheesiest thing about this album for me is the cover art. I think it's a ripping ass album. And let's talk about cheese here. It kind of gets into my question for the group tonight, which is kind of long, in 2-part. As all of us here are and have been connoisseurs of the more extreme side of metal over the years, it seems that power and traditional metal is often looked down upon in spite of its superior musicianship due to more uplifting or cheesy qualities that it may possess. Why do we find positivity so threatening or offensive in our metal? And second part, as you have grown older, do you think your propensity for the extreme has denied you a whole world of excellent heavy metal music? If so, and you have or desire to explore it a bit more outside of your comfort zone, please explain the journey you've had or are willing to take into telling yourself that it's okay to listen to and enjoy a subgenre of metal that you used to so passionately dislike or discredit. Or is this even a big deal? Kellen, we'll start with you.
Okay, so first part to the question. Why, or due to the uplifting cheesy qualities it may possess, so why is it so threatening to the metal community? So I guess the first part of that is, I'm just kind of, I don't want to say speaking just personally, but just observationally, do we understand metal as counterculture or some sort of antagonist subversive content? I think it's the first part of that. For people who I think are getting into metal, that's some part of the appeal. And power metal, well, it may be in this instance lesser so. I think one of the major draws was how approachable it was. The fact that it had a little bit more of a mass appeal. There weren't as many barriers to entry, especially if you're coming from an extreme metal background. So that would be the first part of it. Is it's less of that we are attempting to be sort of some subversive, antagonistic part of culture. 2, I think it's the content, the things that are controversial about it are sort of if you're going to talk about violence, religion, and sex, all of those tend to be a bit more mature in terms of its, the nature of its content. I think that's also what draws many people to it. There's a certain point when you're especially getting into music when you're younger, part of the appeal is I don't want for people to limit what I have access to. And I think for a lot of people, metal is sort of inroads into talking about subject matter that is deemed sort of, adult or beyond your years. And you don't like being told you can't listen to something or this conversation doesn't belong to you. And I think metal is inroads into that. Third part to that, all metal is fiction, right? If you're in a black metal band,
it's escapism, largely escapism,
right? But yes, if you're in a black metal band, you also have to buy toilet paper. If you're in a death metal band, you brush your teeth. I'm sure. The idea that they don't have this life, right? All of it is sort of this fictionalized world. But the point being is And it's best, there's sort of this suspended belief where you believe in the fiction, right? I listen to those best extreme metal records, and I'm like convinced during that time period that this world sort of opens up to you. If the aim in power metal is the trolls dancing and frolicking in the hills and the dolphins and the rainbows, if like that's the fiction and you achieve your goal by bringing me to that world, like, yeah, metal fans going to be like, what the hell? This is not what I signed up for, right? Like, it's not that extreme metal, for example, doesn't have fiction. It's 100% sort of this fantasy world. In that sense, it shares a certain sort of personality with power metal. It's just that if the goal of the genre is to bring that world to you, of course, people are going to roll their eyes when they're presented with like a Disneyland fantasy world. The other parts to it are, I think, so do you, as you grow older, do you think your propensity for extreme music has denied? Like, for me, I guess I'll blend this into the second part of that was, what's been your experience or journey? And for me, somewhere it was like in the mid 2000s. So I did a little short video talking about the year 2008 and how it was influential for me. Here's just two examples. The first In Solitude record. I hadn't spent time with Merciful Fate or King Diamond at all, but I heard this, and that was sort of inroads into listening to that kind of traditional heavy metal for me. This first Blood Ceremony record. I mean, this almost is like 70s doom. It was like a cult rock more than it was necessarily metal, but opened up a door for me. Man. And then to tie in with power metal. So just like Zoller kind of brought this record to you, I'm sure we all have stories, like 100 different versions of this story. People who you trust, their opinion, continually are trying to press a band or a record to you. So I had been reading a blog for the longest time. And when they did in the description of this record, they said, if you know me at all, you must have the lyrics memorized, because I will quiz you. And if you're riding in my car and you fail, I will throw you right out the passenger door. And they were talking about this Powerwolf record. And it's hilarious, right? Like, the description was so passionately stated. I'm talking about the Auto Thrall blog, which had been going on for a long time during the 2000s. I loved reading it.
They contribute a lot to Metal Archives reviews.
Yeah, and the blog's still going, and he's been writing for a long, long time. And
he's awesome.
Rate Your Music, good writer, great sense of humor. But I had no idea who Powerwolf were or how ridiculous this record was. But just like how passionately it was stated, sort of opened a door. And it's goofy, but they're like one of the biggest names right now in power metal. Just a giant band. So I think that's another part of the journey for me, is not just sort of trying new sounds, but also trusting people's opinions. You can talk about the more extreme stuff, but then they open up a door into something you haven't heard before. And that's kind of been a little bit of my journey with it.
Right on. Jim.
Well, yeah. I would say for me, like, it's not power metal that I've kind of gravitated towards to as I've gotten older, for like more, let's just say, forgiving sounds or easier to swallow topics or whatever. For me, it's kind of like the music that in my youth, I raged against, because I felt like it was a bastardization of what metal was. And that for me is like glam metal, like hair bands and stuff like that, hated that stuff. Except for, I was always, and still am and always will be, a fan of Rat, early Motley Crue, which kind of blows all what I just said. Anyway. Dawkins, yeah, I love Dawkins. So there were bands that I felt like were heavy enough to kind of these guys are metal enough. But a lot of the other, I would say, just about all the rest of it, I was really, really, I just didn't ever ever want to hear any of it. But as I've gotten older, what's funny is like, now I'm fortunate enough to have a very small pool in my backyard here in Florida, and man, when I'm in that thing, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear hair bands. It's just fun for me, man. I don't know what it is. And I even question myself. I'm like, why am I like jamming to Smooth Up in You by Bullet Boys right now? Like, what is happening? Like, my young self would be like, screaming Poser and Horror. You know what I mean?
Trying to drown you in that little pool.
Yeah, right. It would for sure, 100%. I can't even tell you what it is. I guess you just mellow with age, and I think that also for me, it's now you kind of look back even on that sort of like like anti this, anti that, mentality, like with nostalgia. You know what I mean? And so your enemies become your friends, and even like beyond like the hairband thing. When I was just getting into metal, and this is when I was like 10 years old and was living in Germany with my dad was military. You know, what was big then was like new wave. You know what I mean? It was like Depeche Mode and Flock of Seagulls and the guy who sang Amadeus and all
Falco.
Yeah. And I was just horrified because I was listening to at the time like I was listening to Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, Ozzy Osbourne, Rat, of course, and everything I was listening to was guitar oriented. Kiss, Van Halen, and I was like, "What is this? Why is everybody listening to this computerized?" Even as a kid, I was like, "This is computerized crap. Like, what's happening?" And now, dude, I love that stuff. I love all of it. I love all that electric '80s new wave music. I even like when I'm working, dude. Like, I'm listening to more often than not. I'm listening to synthwave, where all these like young guys who weren't alive then are making like instrumental versions of those songs. It just relaxes me. It clears my mind, and I can work and not be distracted. And I still listen to metal while I'm working, but it can be distracting because I'm like, I want to bang my head now. I don't want to, I don't want to think. You know what I mean? So it can get in the way. Because I love it so much, and I just want to jam to it, and I can't just let it like float in and out. So for me, I guess it's just like that stereotypical just mellowing with age, and like things that like used to just give me such displeasure. Like now, even with like what I felt was the cheese factor, what I felt was like, oh, this poppy, sing-songy, clean electronic stuff, like all of that stuff. Now I really like it, man. You know what I mean? It has a place. So. So I guess I would say like I'm not afraid of that journey, and I don't know why I still struggle with most power metal. I guess it's almost like for me right now, I feel like there's this distinction of like where I want all this stuff that is like more, if we're using the term, it's getting played to death here, but I can't think of anything else to say, cheesier music, like I feel like hair metal is not metal to me. New wave is not metal to me. And so I'm okay with like embracing it because it's outside of this like wall. But at the same time, to Kellen's point, when you trust someone's opinion so much, like it starts to wear you down a little bit. And Marty, you're one of my best friends in the world, and you love power metal, and you've really been embracing it these last, I'd say, 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And it's been breaking me down. You know what I mean? Like I've been like checking more of it out, and I think that I think that has an influence too. When you trust someone's opinion so much, you respect someone so much. It's actually like that sort of wall that I had like subconsciously put up, where I'm separating out this cheesy stuff into from metal. Like power metal is sort of like breaking that wall down, and I'm starting to embrace more of it. I haven't really gone far and beyond the gods. Like I've always liked Halloween. They've always been on my radar, but Blind Guardian came later. But you introduced me to Lost Horizon. I immediately said, okay, this is awesome. These guys are great. And so I can see myself embracing more and more of it, but it's just got to have something different to it, because like that sort of tweaks my ear. And like with this particular album we're talking about tonight, what sort of like broke this one down and got me a little more interested was like all the hails to my favorite Megadeth album that are on here. You know what I mean? That sort of like, approach to riff writing. Frankly, a lot of people can't pull it off effectively. These guys do. And so they're doing that, and they're doing it in a style that I really enjoy. And so I think if I continue to find, power metal bands that sort of like have either an edge that I didn't expect, like maybe a little bit of a sheen of dark, or embrace sounds that, have been kind of like left in the past or not easily accomplished by others, then I can see my interest in it growing. So that's my journey, long-winded, but I'm done now.
All right, Logan, your thoughts on the topic at hand.
All right. So to kind of answer that first part, like, why could I find positivity so threatening or offensive? To me, it's because that's not what that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I have historically looked for or wanted from metal. I've not gotten into metal because of the positivity. I mean, I'm sure we're all the same way. To kind of get a little personal, I was definitely a sheltered kid growing up, and sheltered musically as well. Country and Christian rock was the majority of what I listened to. So it's easy to, figure out that metal was a way to rebel, specifically
Defiance.
against that.
You were defying the rules. You were defying the rules.
Fuck you. Damn it. I was always a Hibria fan. But, yeah, so like the one of the drawing points was that it was everything, I wasn't supposed to like, essentially. And not only that, I mean, imagine you're growing up and you're listening to friggin', margaritas make her clothes fall off, or whatever these country songs are, and then you hear your first fucking like
It's a new one to me. What's the what?
Tequila makes her clothes fall off. You don't know that country song? It's a classic. Fishing in the dark. That's where you find it.
And me go fishing in the dark. Down on the neck, count the stars.
Oh god!
And everybody logs off.
I'm gonna get kicked off this show. I knew it. But so yeah, you go from that and all the Christian stuff, and then you hear your first like Megadeth guitar riff or something like that. It's just an eye-opening experience, like literally, like life affirming, really. And so from then that point on, it's like an arms race to find everything faster, more brutal, more technical, more intense than everything else. And I'm not gonna lie that during this time, being like a teenager, I was an edgelord. I wanted to get reactions from, my family and friends and stuff that I was surrounded by about listening to dark, satanic, brutal shit and everything. And there really was no place for power metal in this mindset of listening. And especially in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, when I think like the biggest stuff was like, Hammerfall, Sabaton, which I know Marty likes Sabaton, but man, it doesn't hold a candle to like hearing Cannibal Corpse or something like that. So
I'd prefer Sabaton over Cannibal Corpse. I know it's probably sacrilegious at this point, but yeah. Anyway, it's all good.
That's your take, man.
I did Cannibal Corpse, but I can't tell you the last time I listened to Cannibal Corpse.
I will say, I think because of this mindset I've had for the longest time, I've fried my brain, and it's wired this way now that like for me, power metal is automatically like a turnoff or whatever. It's just something that has never genuinely clicked with me, and I will try it. I will listen to it, and I think I'm still on this journey that you speak of, Marty, which I guess I'll get to the second part of this question, which I really like the second part. It actually makes me feel like it's a support group of some kind. It's like, please explain the journey you're on and what steps you're willing to take to tell yourself that it's okay to listen to and enjoy this subgenre.
This is all shit that
hi.
I've been struggling with. That's all this is
Yeah.
all come out in this question here, by the
So,
way.
hi, Marty. My name is Logan, and I've been a snob against power metal for 12 years. I'm trying to change, but some days are harder than others. Truthfully, I'm early on in this journey, and the thing is I'm not one to like force myself to listen to something against my will. I'm just going to listen to what I want to listen to, pure and simple. I'll try stuff, but often it won't get past that cursory listen. You know, that first run through, which, like as I said with this Hibria album, first time I went through it, I kind of glossed over a little bit, might have mentally checked out outside of the bass, but it just didn't do too much on the first listen. So I think doing this exercise, if you will, it showed me that, I can change. I just need to give it time with probably the right albums, So essentially not focusing on just that first impression and really trying to give it a little bit more time. And, I'm still going to listen to what I want to listen to, but hopefully through this, I'll get more comfortable with something like this album.
Right on. And again, I pose this question because this is stuff I've been thinking about for a while. I just, I grew up on Kiss and went into, obviously I grew up in a country household, very much country, some more popular type music. So Kiss was a big gateway for me early on, like 7 or 8. And then it went to, the Ozzies of the world and the Dios of the world. And it was Metallica was the big gateway into heavier stuff. And I just went full bore into the heavy stuff. And it feels like, I don't even remember my damn question. Why do we find positivity so threatening and offensive in metal? Kellen's point here, I don't think that metal is negative, but there's a lot of, posturing, evil this, evil that. I mean, there's negative concepts in metal. I don't consider it as negative because, I have a brain. I can, you know what people are, they're full of shit most of the time. But I remember it was a trip going to the Milwaukee Metal Fest. Zoller was with me and my buddy Jason, and he was playing this Lost Horizons stuff. And the back of my head, I really liked it, but the positivity of it, you can do it. You'll be strong. Just the will through my fateless eyes and all this, will to power type stuff. I don't know. It's just like, you know what? Screw this guy for telling me that I am worth it and this and that. Screw this guy. I don't listen to metal for someone to tell me that positive things. This is dumb. This is dumb. And I laughed it off, but you can't deny how talented it is. And it takes, it took me getting around my own self, my own thought I was culter than cult, into all the heavy underground bedroom black metal shit and some kid farting into a mic over a drum machine and with corpse paint on. I used to love that shit. I loved it. And it just seemed like this power metal stuff, it was the popularity of it. It seemed like a threat to the underground stuff to me for some reason. And unfortunately, I had a platform where I could bitch about it, through Metal Maniacs, through Worm Gear. I slammed a lot of really good records. Now, in hindsight, records that I love now, I probably slammed the crap out of back in the day. So Jim is correct. Maturity goes a long way. Why do we find positivity so threatening? I don't know, because we're just so accustomed to, the negativity just becomes so commonplace. You know what I mean? Songs about, a lot of people write music like this to pour out their feelings, their emotions, their suicidal ideations. And is that a word?
Yes.
Cool. Nailed it. Is that Norwegian? I think I just spoke it a little bit there. And we read these lyrics and take these lyrics in and, shut up, Ben. We take these things in, it just becomes commonplace, and nothing I see things online where people are all up in arms and shocked about some lyrics or something, and I feel numb to it anymore. I'm so desensitized to it. And the heaviness of the whole thing was kind of weighing on me a little bit, just the constant negativity. So the swing back into the earlier days when I was into Halloween so much, it just re-clicked again. I got to rediscover a singer that I never heard much of from that band and fell back in love with it. And then my son comes along and starts to like this stuff as well. So I start listening with enthusiasm to some more commercially viable power metal bands and finding myself liking them. You know what I mean? So I don't know, maturity, growth, seeing someone you love's enthusiasm for it is very contagious. I think Jim was saying something along those lines as well, but yeah, so listening, enjoy subgenre metal. Yeah, I've had a conversation with me. I listen to some Ordinogan or Sabaton, and I think to myself, shit, you know, 20-some-year-old me'd be kicking myself in the nuts saying, what are you doing listening to this garbage? Hot garbage. But you know what? I don't care anymore. I like it. If it's fun, if it's heavy, if it's melody has really shifted for me. I used to hate guitar solos. Now I'm finding an infinite love for them, and these bands, they crush it. So it's like I'm reinvigorated over a style of metal that was kind of dead to me. So it's been a fun journey for sure. Sorry for I didn't realize it would be such a philosophical. This is some shit I've been thinking about. What are you gonna say,
We
Colin?
can talk about this for a long, like that question in terms of extremity and the emotional music, like impact of music. That could be a long.
No, it's a great question. I think we needed to address it, man.
Yeah.
Because I think it's something we all struggle with. It's like we're all enough now where I don't care if you call me a poser or not. But when you're first coming up in metal and you're really young, like you really want to not be a poser. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's that pressure.
Right.
There's that pressure. So you want to come off like, I'm heavy. I like the extremes. I like the underground. Yeah, these guys are lame. This sucks. And so it's like, even as you get older, you still feel that. And then, of course, you get older, you start caring less. You start listening more to stuff. And then you're kind of like, why did I ever care? And so I think it's really good that we address this, because what we're getting at is that you never should, because all emotions of metal should be embraced. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that every band is good.
No, of course not.
Every
genre's got its,
every genre's got its gods and every genre's got its garbage. You know what I mean? So we just have to shuffle it out, but not have it be based, if we can, forget about some of like the really, awful, lyrical content, and really like, this is metal and it's heavy and it's awesome, then we should be okay with the uplifting content too, as long as the songs are good. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's what matters. So I think I'm really glad you brought it up. It's great talk.
And I think a fair follow-up question is like, does just listening to the negative side of metal, does it actually kind of wear you down and weigh on you in your normal day-to-day life?
It does for me.
It actually, there's some days I almost feel like that. So I kind of saw that in your question as well.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I get shit in my own band, and people online. I do a power metal review, like, oh, this cheesy shit. Marty likes all this cheese. Yeah, I do. I'm to the point where I don't give a shit, and I think it's funny, and I just want people to get past that wall where they're like, oh, it's cheesy. So is it good? At the core of it, is it killer fucking metal? I mean, we're getting into it right now. Let's do it. Is this killer metal? Let's do it. Discuss musicality and composition of Defying the Rules. Logan, we'll start with you.
Oh. All right. So, as I said, I first showed off, like when we were talking about what we were spinning, I showed a bunch of power metal albums I was into, because I was kind of trying to create a basis for it, why I like power metal, to begin with, and try to better click with this album, because as I first mentioned on, with the first impression, it kind of didn't happen. And I will say, with doing that, I realized that power metal is just like any other, genre of metal, where there's like 10 different 12 different subgenres. There's, you know, so many different types. Like the stuff I showed really does not sound anything like Hibria in this album. I mean, all the stuff I showed was a bit more dynamic in tempo and song structure. And I think they all really delved a little bit more into heavy metal influences, like, you know, like the Twisted Tower Dire and Vicious Rumors especially. Those albums are a bit more down to earth, where the Hibria really embraces that soaring, epic nature. Where, yeah, I don't know why, you know, there were motorcycles on the album cover. It should be like an eagle or a fucking jet airplane or something like that. A jet airplane, and you know, that would be more apt, I feel like, because that's kind of what this album is. I mean, what is this like subgenre of power metal? We're talking like technical power metal, progressive power metal.
I just take it as power metal.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even really. It's funny, you know. Now that everybody's mentioning the thrash shit, in hindsight, I can hear it, but when I'm listening to this, I don't care. I just took it as a power metal record. Anyway, it's your time. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, but that's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about, though. So, because I think I needed to be able to. I'm a nerd where I like to talk about subgenres and subgenres and all kinds of shit like that. So, trying to figure out how it fits kind of helped me figure out how to listen to it, and really embracing the riff structure you were talking about, Jim, where you're hearing like the thrash riffs and stuff. Like, that's what this album is about. And I think it's about that with the pulverizing rhythm section underneath, kind of just pushing everything forward at a continuous pace, like a nonstop pace. I mean, it's go, go, go. There's like one half of a ballad on here, I feel like.
There's like 3 slower songs. Yeah.
Ish.
I was about to say, I only picked up on one. I was like, this is kind of slow. Is that what, Ice Song?
Yeah.
Is it Buried Under Ice? No,
Living Under Ice.
Song. Living Under Ice, not Buried. That's a different band. Yeah, so kind of figuring out that's what to focus on. And then as soon as I got to like the second and the third listen, songs started to like kind of open up and click with me. The first one, Kingdom to Share, and it was because of like just the guitar riffage and then really what the chorus ended up doing. I think that kind of captured what Hibria is trying to do, a perfect pairing of just really phenomenal thrash and speed riffage into a chorus that just kind of sucks you in and really propels you forward. I mean,
power metal chorus.
Yep. But like one that is almost, you can tell it builds to the chorus. Some of my issues with the other tracks on here are I can't differentiate the verse to the chorus as much. I wish there's almost more of that catchy hook, you know, and A Kingdom to Share absolutely just kills it with that. So, but as soon as I found that song, the album overall opened up to me and kind of like just let me really get into it a lot more. Focusing on the musicality now, specifically, man, all the performances here are phenomenal. Like, so technically proficient and impressive. There's no denying that these guys are at the top of their game when it comes to just metal music in general, let alone power metal. But I mean, if they could play a death metal band, I would listen to that. If they play a thrash metal band, I'd listen to that, because I'm sure, you know, be top notch. The lead guitar vibrato is just all over this place, and the guitar solos themselves are, I think, pretty unique parts of the song, and really kind of stand out. Like they are able to create some solos which sound like a thrash metal, and then some where it's almost like it sounds a bit jammier or progressive in leaning, and like it makes the individual songs more unique versus just feeling like something that they had to play there, you know. And then the rhythm section, as I've already said, I feel like is the MVP and gets my vote for really carrying this album all the way through. And to kind of finally touch on the vocals, I feel like that's the last thing I'm still feeling a little out of touch with. I do think some tracks, they kind of all blend in a little bit. But I mean, the guy is still an amazing singer. So I just wish some songs had a little bit more variety and stuff, and maybe that the band overall took a little bit more creative choices in like focusing on creating a unique vocal structure or chorus. For example, the Faceless in Charge, man, they finally used some group harmonies and stuff on that track, and it pushes it to just being phenomenal. So this was definitely an album that opened itself up on subsequent listens. As I said, I only got to 5 total. I don't know how many you were supposed to listen to for something like this.
Enough to feel like you got it.
I probably still haven't gotten all of it, I will say. This is probably more of a snapshot for me versus the final penultimate rating. But it's definitely clicking, and I am really really enjoying and really impressed with the musicality and and definitely a bunch of the songs that are on here. Not all of them, but a good bit were written extremely well.
Right on. Kellen, your thoughts?
So influences, I think it sounds like the part of German power metal that was a little bit more thrash oriented. So I'm thinking like early Paradox is another like a band I would think of, or
first
like
2 albums rule.
Yeah, Angel Dust, like bands like that have a like there's definitely some thrash going on there, but also an early stage of like 1980s German power metal, because that stuff was kind of wrapped up in speed and thrash as well.
Well, listen to Walls of Jericho. It's
for sure
very speed metal.
Yeah, so I think that's primarily what the songwriting is, and I kind of agree with Logan's initial impression, and I think we've all, at least Jim joins in here, the consistent pacing of this record. Like the one thing that really I thought was the change versus the Lost Horizon listen was you got slower, more like, I don't want to say ballad builds on that album, where you felt like the album was paced in a way that had greater dynamic shifts. This entire album for me felt like they just had their foot to the floor, just riffing along. And that's kind of the mission statement for it, is like, we're not going to be in 2004 is when this comes out.
Yeah. 20 years old.
Yeah. So we're not going to be like a lot of the direction that so much of power metal is going in at the time. I don't know when the first Dragon Force record came out.
I can tell you, my kid's been listening to a shit ton of Dragon Force.
Right? Because that's my era of power metal. Is like Guitar Hero, jumping on trampolines. Like that's power metal for me when I was growing up. But
their first album came out in 2003.
There you go. So this to me very much felt like that's kind of time period in Germany's, like, power metal is sort of the major influence there. I do love, though, like, they've pulled a couple of times here, I can feel sort of the melodic build where you can realize that the generation of German power metal that had influenced them also was sort of coming from like Maiden, Judas Priest, traditional heavy metal. There's these like other sort of soaring builds that sort of incorporate themselves into the songs. You do get that double bass on a couple of tracks here. Double bass will just open up and crazy sort of lead work will go through. And that's just like, okay, this is a power metal, click off sort of that list. I need to hear that. But one of the things I do think is important to mention is, like, relative to like the Orden Ogan that you just reviewed, I don't view this as a incredibly chorus focused record. I think it is much more of a guitar record. And that's where the focus, and I know the bass playing is talented and they're all competent musicians, but it just feels to me like if you're looking for that kind of big choral influence, this is not the record for you. It's much more of like a straight ahead metal record overall.
All right, Jim.
Well, you guys really covered the gamut of everything. So, but yeah, musicality and composition. You know, obviously we've already talked about it at length. You know, these guys are shredtastic. I mean, if you're into like amazing bass playing, I think that's reason enough to listen to this record, because it's up high in the mix. It's kind of ever present, and he's always just all over the place. He's never just following the guitars at any moment. And so there's a lot of interest there to be had. If you're into that instrument, I am. So there was, and I think Kellen's right. I do think this is more of a riff album in terms of like the power metal realm. There are some really great choruses on here. The 3 songs I really enjoy, which I know we'll get into later. All of those have really, really great, memorable choruses. But in the songs that were like, not as, the ones that kind of didn't stand out to me as much, what did stand out to me in place of that catchy, memorable chorus was like very, very strong riffing. Outside of, the rhythm section, which we've discussed at length, is awesome. Which, by the way, I think that drummer likes Nick Menza a lot. The drum fill that begins Defying the title track is pure Nick Menza all over the place. Yeah. So yeah, not much to say there. I mean, there's no denying these guys are shredders. And I think, in my limited experience as a novice to power metal fandom, as it were, I think you've got to be a very competent musician to play power metal well. To be in a good power metal band. I mean, it's the music is fast. It's very tight. You usually get the riffs are syncopated really with fast double bass. The melody lines are typically very memorable on the guitar. It's so you've got singers with typically lots of vibrato, a wide range, usually on the higher register, and whether you like those styles or not, it takes skill to play them. All like that style of guitar playing, got to be skilled. That style of drumming, constant fast rolling double bass. That style of singing, lots of operatic vibrato. I mean, all of these, take a lot of work to finesse to the point where, they are, I would say have staying power in a power metal genre. Like if you're just an adequate musician, no one's going to care about your power metal band.
You get pushed into the epic metal realm.
yeah. But yeah, I would say to be true power metal, that's what you've got to be, and that's what these guys are. So I think we can leave this topic for the next one. We got that covered.
Well, for me, there's not much. I don't disagree really with anything that was said here. The chorus, I think a lot of modern power metal it seems like if you like pull up Sabaton, for instance, or even Ordinogan, it almost feels like they write the chorus first. Like, okay, here's this killer, awesome, hook-laden monster chorus. Now we have to figure out, oh, gee, how is the rest of the song going to be lumped around this? That I don't get the impression here on Defying the Rules. It's the chorus is the singer's name, I-U-R-I. I'm assuming it's Yuri, but it looks like Iuri. It's probably just Yuri Sanson. So I'm going to say Yuri. If it's wrong, I'm sorry. He's a really good singer. There's moments where I hear some Daniel Hyman from Lost Horizon in his higher register, which is a nice touch. But the choruses on this album, they serve a purpose. They're catchy, but they're very brief. But it does a couple of the songs. It really allows him to shine a little bit, really highlight some of the melodic lines in those choruses. But, I mean, the meat and potatoes of this album is just really well done riffs. And yeah, there's some technicality to it, but if you really listen to it, there's a lot of palm muted crunching too. So, I mean, there's a good foundation. So when the guitars and the bass go off into, the another dimension, I think they do it in a way that still holds a melodic line. And I really love the uniqueness of the fact that the guitars they can lock up together, but a lot of times the bass comes in and locks in too. I highlighted on a couple of these songs where the solo ends with the bass joining the solo. It's like, you listen to it on headphones, it's like the way that they build it to get to that point is so fucking genius. It's like, I am not a good musician. I get by, but just hearing people that know what the hell they're doing, like sculpt all these like avenues that come together at a certain point like that, a certain intersection point, it's like, oh, golf clap all day long, you know? It's great. It's great. And there's moments like this all over this record. And my one complaint with it would be, as far as the songwriting and composition, it's 52 minutes long. And that doesn't, my copy of this has 2 bonus tracks, which is a Hard Ride, which is a Pantera cover off their power metal record, and Painted Skies, which is an amazing cover of a Crimson Glory song. Holy shit. Go check it out on YouTube if you don't have this version. Their cover of Crimson Glory's Painted Skies is a great emotional ending to this CD, but with the bonus tracks on here, this gets very long. There's a couple tracks that could have been culled from this, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but the songwriting and composition on here it sounds like a band just burning with ambition and youthful vigor, and they're showing off what they got, and it's awesome. It's awesome. But all right, where are we at? Music production. Kellen.
So here's my thing. The production, there's nothing really to complain about.
No.
A lot of this is actually pretty muscular sounding.
Mm-hmm.
It's clean. You can parse into the mix and pull all the instruments out. Everything is, I think, well sorted and organized. What I don't like about it is it lacks personality. Like, I don't feel there's anything incredibly unique about the production, or there's something that stands out about the production. It's all good, but I never come away feeling like there's something unique in terms of its qualities that it presents. And I think that's to one of the things about power metal, especially probably in the 21st century, is you don't get that often enough. Like, one of the reasons I loved Sacred Outcry's release last year is it felt like there was like a little bit of an aura or atmosphere to that record. Like there was like sort of material world that it operated in. This feels like an incredibly well calculated and precise listening experience in the production. And that's the success. So when Marty's talking about, you can hear 2 guitars going through an arpeggio, and when the bass jumps in to join them,
Mm-hmm.
all of it is audible.
Yep.
There's nothing that's sort of swallowing up the same space. So it's incredibly well organized in that regard. It just, to me, there's something about it that also feels so curated that I kind of feel I'm missing a little bit of something else to make it exceptional. So that's always my sort of the thing about this record. Outside of that, like, I just, with the playing style, with the guitar work and the kind of thrash speed metal thing we're talking about here, I do think that's a standout feature, is that they captured, if they were trying to dig into that sort of like thrash sound within power metal, they did not diminish the weight of the guitar, that palm muting aspect. It's captured here. So if you are looking for something a bit more aggressive from a power metal release in the 21st century, like, you'll find it.
Jim.
Yeah, I really dig the production on here. You know, obviously, as anybody who watches this stream knows, you know, anything that's bass heavy, you know, I like. And so that great kind of like Dee Dee Verney boing of his bass that's kind of ever present there, like it, you know, it has a great appeal to me. Though I think it's pretty obvious this guy plays with his fingers and not a pick like Dee Dee does. But yeah, it just has like that kind of just like, you know, just kind of sort of a sound that kind of, you know, stays under and over the guitars. You know, I mean, there's even one song, The Faceless in Charge, where I'm like, I was like, even wrote like, dare I say it? Is the bass too loud at the beginning of this song? I don't know that I've ever said that on this show, but
I think there's too much bass on this one.
Yeah, like right at the beginning, like it's like they kind of turned him up just a little bit. Like, hey, check this one little run out, and it's like so loud. I'm like, wow, even I don't know if that was right. You know. But for the most part, yeah, I really dig it. And because the guitars and just in power metal in general, the guitars are always like very precise, very pristine, very clean. And I like that the bass player sort of just plays in and around the riffs all the time. It gives it a loose feeling without making the band sound loose, if that makes sense. Like the band still sounds extremely tight, but with the production of the bass, where it sits in the mix, with the performance of the bass, it gives it like a little bit more, let's say, playfulness. Because there's a couple times on this record where he actually does some slap bass on it, and on one song I like it, on another song I don't. So that's something that in metal, like it has to be very sparingly for me, but and it has to be just enough and not too much. So I think he goes a little too far a little bit with that, but for the most part, it's more of like classical runs and scales and arpeggios and finger tapped runs and stuff like that I think are just pure metal and work very well. I know this is a production question. I'm talking about performance, but yeah, production wise, I think everything other than like a couple of areas where the bass may have sort of overshadowed everything else. I think that everything else really, really sits in a nice spot for me. It's I think that the levels of each instrument kind of like hit where they should for metal. But one of the cool things is it doesn't get to like, it has a lot of highs in it like all power metal does, but it has a little bit of a low mid sort of overall feel to it that kind of gives it a little more like gravitas, if you will, if I'm pronouncing that right. It just feels a little bit like, to Kellen's point, more aggressive. You know what I mean? Whereas if they had been like, went full on, more like high mids in their range, it would have sounded maybe more typical power metal, but less heavy for me. So I actually like that, whether it was intentional or not, I like that choice in the studio where there's more low mids overall in all the instruments to sort of keep this a little more ballsier, so kudos to them for that.
All right. Logan.
Yeah, initially I was just going to praise the production, but I actually do think, Kellen, you brought up a good point where sometimes it does feel like they are trying to present like a product or a moment versus create an organic sound all the way through, where like it's all of a sudden, oh yeah, the bass is now really high up in the mix where it wasn't there before, and now the guitars kind of more sound like this because this is now the ending of the song and we're trying to have a climactic quality to the track versus on like the verse passage and stuff where it's all just vocals and guitar more so. I don't know. I'm gonna have to re-listen to it kind of with that in mind to see how consistent that is all the way through. But as I said, I am gonna praise it though for sure. I do think it really is a fairly roomy production. I love how you can really do hear for the most part, the guitars and the vocals up here, the bass kind of in the middle doing its weird jazzercise dance at you, and then the drums being like I think to keep it loosely tight, as Alan said in the
loosely
chat,
tight.
The drums are the one that are really like kind of holding the whole room together by just like nailing, their consistent performance while still doing, killer drum fills and stuff. I will say that when they want that guitar to be heavy, the production really does come through. I think Jimmy mentioned that there's some tracks where it sounds like a NASCAR, like revving its engine or something, the guitar, as it starts to really build up momentum. And this is probably a great driving album. I could see Zoller having a great time with this.
Out the sunroof.
Out the sunroof. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the production does what it really is meant to be, and I maybe it oversteps in places, but this is a power metal album, right? The whole genre oversteps all over the place, in my opinion. But I'm still getting into this stuff, so it's my take.
All right. Well, for me, the production, I have zero problems with this production. I think, as there's nothing that jumps out as, I will say, if they wanted to capitalize on the thrash element of their sound, Jim mentioned Nick Menza. I mean, think about the Nick Menza sound on Rust in Peace. How tight, and it's like it was its own. It kind of set alone in the mix. It had its own thing. This here, the guy's a good drummer. He's solid. He's just got a. He's a pocket drummer, but he's got a loosey goosey about it, which is completely fine. It gives it kind of an organic, otherwise very exacting music, kind of an organic backbone, which I like. I like that. So I mean, that's why the whole the thrash thing. It's like, why didn't that occur to me when I was listening to it? I didn't even think about that whole thing until now. Like, okay, I get that now. I understand that now, but I don't know. The production to me is fine. It's the vocals sit right where they need to be in the mix. The guitars and the bass. I mean, for all the interplay that's going on and the fact that you can hear everything, thumbs up. And this is a band from Brazil, which I would assume there's not a lot of money to be thrown into something like this. I didn't read. I mean, I didn't read any of this. I could look it up real quick. Hold on.
It's not on Cogumelo, I'm guessing.
It's not on Cogumelo. No, it's not. Additional notes. Let me see. All songs recorded at Studio 1000, Porto Alegre, Brazil, except bass guitar on Steel Lord on Wheels and Change Your Lifeline, which were recorded at Studio Del Rey, Buenos Aires, Argentina. All synth was recorded. Yeah, fuck the synth. I noticed one of the guitarists was credited for synth. It's so layered into what's going on. I didn't even notice that. Recorded at Studio Del Rey, Buenos Aires, mixed and mastered at Powerhouse Studios, Hamburg, Germany. So, I don't know. It sounds like a production studios that had the right stuff. Everything. It sounds good to me. Thumbs up on the production. Least favorite songs. Logan. You're muted.
I'm muted. Rookie mistake. Get him out of here. So I guess to start with favorite songs, I think I already kind of mentioned them. Like the first track that I actually kind of glommed onto was A Kingdom to Share. It's the chorus. But also like the opening line, the opening guitar riff in that track as well. And then kind of looking at the track listing, The Faceless in Charge might actually be my favorite track on the album. Once again, the chorus, because I think because that all the songs are almost occupying the same intensity in like the guitar riff and everything. The fact that there's such a chorus that stands out to me at least, that's what really makes it different and steps it up from the rest of the tracks on the album. So those are my two favorite, Kingdom to Share and The Faceless in Charge. But truthfully, the whole middle section of the album, I'm on board with. I mean, it starts to get really good with A Millennium Quest. Probably the best guitar riffage, I think, on the album with that song. Mm-hmm. Living Under Ice, that's the one like almost ballad, which still great. And then the title track is good too. Then the least favorite songs, honestly, I'm gonna have to point to the first track, Steel Lord on Wheels. That might you can tell. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm trying to get into the mindset of listening to this intense power metal album, and it kind of just like blows past me. Like I listen to it, and then all of a sudden it's done. I'm like, wait, what just happened? I'm on track 2, or
your dick just got knocked in the dirt. What happened?
So now I have to go pick it up.
You got to pick it up, dust it off.
I dust it off later, but it just takes time, and by the time
rub a Bong Wizard CD on it, clean it up.
Yeah, that shit's already dirty. It's just gonna make it dirtier. What are we talking about? But
clean up with some bong water.
By the time I've cleaned off all that stuff, we're on to track 3, Millennium Quest. I'm like, sweet, I get it now. I understand the purpose of this album. It's intensity and all the way through. And and then the one other song I don't necessarily get, High Speed Breakout, track 9, I think. It's like jammy, or like it's got like some weird prog, like it sounds like it'd be on Animals as Leaders or Plenty or something like that. That's where the bass almost gets a little too fun and flamenco and like happy with you, and it kind of loses me a little bit. And the chorus is too happy. It's too happy. So that's the only other song. Everything else is great.
Right on. Kellen.
So I actually agree. Millennium Quest, the three that I wrote down. So my favorite part of Millennium Quest is like the intro to that. It sort of like drops into sort of like that thrashing riff.
It's an intro, aggressive intro. Yeah.
Yeah. For that song, like the way it begins is what always grabs my attention. I agree here with Logan on it's the solo for A Kingdom to Share that I like. It's the one moment on this record where I first sort of heard just the double bass, and then you hear like incredibly talented sort of guitar work coming through. I'll also double up on the Faceless in Charge. That one, I feel like they tease the ending to that, meaning they like almost get to the point where they're going to break into a big melody, sort of like open chorus point, and then they jump back into a thrash. That song sort of builds and they finally deliver in the last sort of portion of that song. My least favorite track. So I get they're trying to be like, hey, don't encroach on my freedom. I'm a metal guy. But Stare at Yourself, the way that this ends with like them trying to appeal to it, like this person being like, look at yourself. Don't ruin my life, man. I'm going to live free. And it's sort of like, I feel like he's talking to a mirror. Like there's something weird about the way that song, just stare at yourself, that closes this record. It's one of the weirdest moments lyrically on it, and it's like the ending, like stare at yourself, stare at yourself, stare. As this record ends, it's the weirdest track for me, and I always felt like, man, I know we're not going to end on that, right? And then boom, it's over.
Well, this CD doesn't.
On the bonus version, you got a cool. But I just had an awkward moment with the singer just talking to himself into a mirror, and then the album's done for me.
See,
So
I think they thought that was a really cool image in their mind. Because I got that too.
It is. That's the low point for me on this record. So that's my least favorite track here.
Right on. All right, Jim's, what you got?
Jim's is about to speak. And I got to tell you, Logan, we're in some alignment here, man. A Kingdom to Share. Definitely my favorite song of the record, man. I think it's got the more of a standout chorus. It has a great balance between being like slightly mournful and triumphant. There's a little bit of sadness in there that I think makes it stronger. Again, like that song has that prime sort of Megadeth like riff behind the solo that I was talking about, that I really like. That's the song also with a finger tap bass playing at the beginning, and has a cool like chunky syncopated with the double bass verse riff going on that I think a little outside of what these guys are normally doing. So all of those combine to make this for me the most standout track there. So I really like A Kingdom Share. And really, for me, it's the album as a whole. That middle section's the best for me. Living Under Ice. I like, again, another great chorus. Please Make Me Believe In. There's a spark of light to me. At all. Typical positive kind of power metal vocal, but delivered with sincerity and really stood out to me. I like the triplet style verse riff. I'm always a sucker for the. I love that kind of stuff. And it's there, so it's got and the fact that it's like a little bit more of like and still, moving to Kellen's. I'll use Kellen's metaphor, foot on the gas style, pacing. Is more. This one is a little bit more, mid on that pace. So, and again, more standout for that reason. And then Defying the Rules, man, the title track, dude, has that cool Nick Menza like drum fill to start. Has the weird moment in the middle where there is like it's like a kind of a slap bass thing I mentioned earlier, but it isn't like the really awkward one that happens in there's one song I don't like it in. Which one is that? It might be at Stare at Yourself, where they do another progressive section. The slap bass just comes on like, you did it more than once. That's too much on a power metal record. I didn't like it there. But what's cool about Defying the Rules, there's this cool, this classic metal riff where they do the stop-start thing. Where it's like, bam, 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 that kind of a thing. they do that in Defying the Rules, and I loved that. I wasn't expecting it. Just to call it back to trad heavy metal that I thought was really cool and really powerful. And I love the way he delivers the vocal, like Everyone Will Be Forgiven. I really love the way he delivers that. That's definitely one of my favorite vocal moments on the album. So yeah, 5, 6, 7, that middle part of the album, super strong for me, especially Kingdom to Share. And again, I'm going with Logan, man. I'm sorry, I don't like Steel Lord on Wheels either, man. I do not like it.
What the fuck?
I was every time I listen to it, I just hear "To Be the Wiener." That's what I hear every time, man.
Well, you're staring at yourself all day long. You're going to notice the wiener eventually.
Be the wiener. Be the wiener.
Be the wiener, little wiener.
You're a star.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
Demonetized. Woo!
demonetized. No, man, it didn't have anything to give me there. I felt like it was kind of boilerplate by the numbers power metal. It just doesn't. Every time it comes around, when I'm playing this on multiple spins, like I was just ready for the song to get over with and go ahead and get on to like Change Your Lifeline, which I think is a much better song. So yeah, I don't think the album starts strong, but it gets better. Like in the middle section, very very strong. I didn't hate Stare at Yourself so much, but now I feel like after Kellen described it, I'm like, man, I need to go back and listen to that. That song is weird.
I liked it too, and I didn't. The things that bothered him didn't really occur to me. So yeah.
But yeah, for me, the middle of the album, 5, 6, and 7, especially Kingdom to Share.
All right. Well, I got to say, my favorite song on the album is definitely Millennium Quest. I really like that aggressive intro riff that Kellen mentioned for sure. It's a very triumphant song, and that Yuri, the eye throws me off. Adds a little bit more grit and gravel to his voice on this one, which is largely a clean singing album. Have a little bit of grime in there. It's kind of cool. It adds a little bit of depth and edge to his performance. The guitar work on this one's fantastic. I love the dueling guitar and bass line at 3 minutes 57 seconds. So much energy exploding between the multiple solos. Great song. That's my favorite for sure. But Steel Lord on Wheels, I mean, really, it's a banger. You want to start off with a banger, they give you a banger. Be the wiener all day long, Jim. It's okay. Embrace the wiener. Embrace the wiener.
I'll do that tonight, Marty.
Right on. I mean, the thing I like about this song is there's a traditional riffing style that does make an appearance, but it's just more palm muted, fast, kind of speed metal crunch to it. I like how the song opens up during the chorus, energetic double bass, glorious trade off lead work with moments where Marco Panici, the bass player, his bass lines link up with the guitar solos, which he does numerous times throughout the album, and it's very cool. I think it's a good lead-off track. Energetic, Change Your Lifeline. This could have been the lead-off track as well. It's also another banger. The bass, though, takes center stage on this one. The bass lines are all over the place on this one, as a matter of fact. A lot of depth and layering on this one. I love the melody lines in the chorus and how Yuri adds to the majesty with his vocals. He's a good singer. Millennium Quest, I already talked about. Kingdom to Share. Every track feels like it's improving at this point. Each song, it feels like the album with each track is getting better. And that's like, most bands stack that shit. They put their best shit forward, and then there's always a lull, and then they try to finish strong. Well, at least that's our hopes here anyway. But man, such mature melody lines on this song for sure. Every note, it feels fresh and exciting. This is a band excited to be making this type of music. I gotta love the colorful bass lines and textures, add even more flair. And that guitar line, that double guitar line at the end of the solo at 2 minutes, 22 seconds. It's just what the doctor ordered. What a great, great moment. My least favorite, it's like I don't dislike any song on this record, but Living Under Ice and The Faceless in Charge and High Speed Breakout, like that song in particular, it's a slower track, which is funny that it's not exactly what the title would suggest. It's a good song, energetic song, but especially The Faceless in Charge and High Speed Breakout, those two are linked together. And I mean, in a 52-minute long album, those two songs though they have quality, you could have taken them out and the album would have been a little bit more lethal. You know what I mean? Living Under Ice is pretty good too. It's more of a slow. It's the first of the slower, more subdued tracks. Solid, but not as layered. It's still a good song. Just
Yeah,
hard
I
to.
agree with you, Marty. I think those two could have been taken out, and
Yeah.
it would have really, really tightened up put
Yeah.
the length in a perfect place.
I mean, Living Under Ice is the first moment where they slowed down, and it was an attempt to try to add a little bit of dynamics to the track listing. You know, they're trying to show,
Yeah,
that, look, we
that's why
can.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's why I like it. You know?
Yeah. Good song, but, you know, I just don't think it's as. After following up 4 or 5 completely crushing solo-driven songs, and then to kind of take it back a bit, I was wanting more. I guess I wanted more of the speed. And ending the album with Stare at Yourself, it's a musically playful song. I like the ending. I think it's a good song. A lot of interaction between the guitar and the bass lines. Is it a speedy ending? It isn't, but it does the job. I dig it. And again, I was surprised listening to this on Spotify, and it didn't have the 2 bonus tracks. I've been listening to this in the car all week. So, and like I said, Hard Ride, they do on this bonus tracks. It's a Pantera cover song off of their power metal album when they were kind of hair metal-y. And then Painted Skies, which is a killer Crimson Glory song. So definitely try to hunt that down if you can find it. They're both worth checking out. But that leaves us with this long episode. Sorry, everybody. Judgment, final thoughts. Logan.
All right. So this is definitely a powerful album that kind of, you know, showed me that there's more to this genre, especially in, you know, this kind of speed thrash oriented style of power metal. I mean, it's definitely something that I already knew. Like, I know that there's just a world out there of all this power metal stuff that I've really not dove into, but I keep putting it off until the time comes. But for this album, the time has come, and I'm glad that I finally had the chance to really kind of dive in. I mean, the intensity of it, you know, the perfect instrumentation, and the uplifting energy, you know, it was all really good. And
you are the wiener. You are the wiener, Logan.
And now I believe it. Before I didn't believe it, but Hibria has helped me realize I am the wiener. So now that I'm a bit more familiar with the sound, hopefully I have something to latch onto, and, you know, I'll actually get to get the urge to listen to it. So I think the true test will kind of come after this album club.
Yeah.
You know, like in the days, the weeks, the months to come. Will I find myself getting the urge or the itch to revisit this album, or be like, you know, try to check out finally some other big albums from this style of power metal, you know? Hopefully I will. I definitely encourage you guys to start sending me recommendations for it. Like, obviously now I'm forgetting, but what is the band that this sounds like again? Lost Horizon. So Lost Horizon is the next thing I need to check out. I have no
Awakening the World is an
Awakening
ass
the
whooping
World.
album. That album
So
rules. It rules. If you don't
That'll
like
be-
that, there's something wrong. There's something wrong.
there could be something wrong. We'll see. But now I'm ready to try to dive into, you know, that stuff. So as far as the rating goes, I think for me, I kind of mentioned it's more of a snapshot of where I'm at right now versus like a definitive rating. But this is easily a 8 out of 10 for me.
Wowie.
So,
Okay. Right
yeah,
on.
like a lighter 8 out of 10, but still
Sure.
an 8 out of 10. So good pick, Marty.
Right on. Kellen.
Yep. In the Discogs cart. I mean, I definitely have been pretty open about how this is sort of something I'm focusing on more and more now. So I've kind of been kicking around. You know, Lost Horizon was one of them, but with last year's Sacred Outcry and the Domine record that I really enjoyed. I picked up Gamma Ray. I've started to collect a stack of really European power metal. That's
Sure.
what we're talking about here. Even though this is a Brazilian band, I think, you know, one of the things that everyone here is, you know, Logan showed Twisted Tower Dire, had Vicious Rumors. Like I've been into American power metal for a long time. And then the European flavor is something that I'm getting more and more acquainted with. So, yeah, Ripper, if you like aggressive power metal, check this out.
Right on, Jim.
So, power metal is still not a genre that I'm super into, and it takes a lot for me to love, and outside of the gods, when my listening choices are outside the album club, it's pretty much only Blind Guardian and Halloween. So that being said, I do like this record, but I probably won't pick it up. It's still not quite in my zone enough where I like it and I respect it, but I don't know that I like it enough to return to it. So, but I can't deny like how incredible musicians they are, and some of the songwriting just really appealed to me. So for that reason, I'm going to give this a 7.5. And for me, for power metal, that's a high rating. So
Right on. I mean, I picked it. I think it's a great record. I think it crushes. I've heard, Alan's told me the first 3 records of theirs are really good, not as good as this one. And I guess after their 3rd record, they've kind of fallen off. So I don't know why that would be, unless there's lineup changes. Who knows? But this record is great. I think it's, my buddy Craig turned on. Thanks again, Craig, for getting it for me and turning me onto this. And it kind of checks all the boxes. It's got technical proficiency. It's got great guitar work, great bass work, great sound. Checks all the boxes. It's a good 8.5 album for me all day long. So yeah, that's it. Logan, you're the new guy, so you're the one picking for us next week. What
Man,
sort of?
You guys are screwed, dude. I don't know. Giving the new guy the chance, it's risky. So
we all take turns. We all every week it revolves. So
it's only fair. Well, I'm lucky I came on the week where it's my turn. But so I figured for the first pick, since my first album club ever, I wanted to pick something that kind of lets everyone kind of know where my wheelhouse is a little bit. We get a lot of thrash metal. There's a lot of like that old school 90s death metal. There's even some power metal here, some epic doom metal. But I really don't know if there is one of my favorite subgenres represented. And this is from my home state of North Carolina. This is one of the big exports, sludge. So cheers, guys. We're jamming to some Weed Eater next week. This is Godluck and Good Speed. So out of Wilmington, North Carolina. So
all right, Wilmington.
Yep.
Always wanted to check that town out.
Check out the music. First step.
all right. So I'm gonna put this in the chat. Weed Eater, God luck, and Good Speed.
All right.
That'll be our first stoner rockish type of release for sure. That'll be interesting to check out.
First album with weed in the title for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Logan, thank you for joining us. It's good to have you in the club for sure. Everybody, go check out Eihwaz Recordings. Go check out Metal and Beer Snob. Go check out Killing for Company. And you know what? Kellen's got a killer review of the new Noxus album. I've put up a review of the new Orden Ogun. If you like stuff like this, go check that out. And I'm hoping tonight there'll be another review put up for tomorrow, but if not, it might be Friday. So trying to do something one day, something for every day of the week this week. We've got plenty of content coming your way. Just pay attention. If I don't make it, I don't make it. This is the way it goes. But anyway, y'all rule. Friday, show notes. We have nothing yet. We will get that sorted out here in the next day or so. So anybody have anything to add before we go?
Happy to be here. Cheers.
Hopefully this weekend there'll be a return. Corinne should be making a return on a Married to Metal episode.
Yes.
So hopefully
Awesome.
that gets recorded, and by the time I see everyone next week, that'll be up for you.
Stoked. Great.
Awesome. Corinne returns. Yes, the true heart and soul of Killing for Company. Cheers, everybody. We will see you Friday. And this this crew will see you Wednesday. So cheers. Bye.
Later.